August 6, 1945. 8:15 in the morning. The city of Hiroshima awakens beneath a sky so blue it seems painted by the gods themselves. Housewives hang laundry on bamboo poles. Children chase each other through narrow streets, still cool with the morning's breath. In the Anayo Bridge district, a merchant arranges fresh fish on ice, their silver scales catching the early light. The air smells of miso soup and rice, of 1,000 breakfast fires burning across a city of 350,000 souls. Above the city, at 31,000 feet, a single B-29 superfortress, the Enola Gay, releases its payload. A uranium bomb nicknamed Little Boy tumbles through the cloudless sky, falling toward the T-shaped Anayo Bridge, its target coordinates locked with mathematical precision. 43 seconds of silence. 43 seconds in which the world remains as it has always been, and then, at 1,968 feet above the Shima Surgical Clinic, the atom splits. In that instant, briefer than a heartbeat, faster than thought, the temperature at ground zero reaches 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than the surface of the sun. The air itself ignites. Shadows of human beings are burned into stone walls, permanent silhouettes marking where they stood in the microsecond before they ceased to exist. The blast wave travels outward at 980 miles per hour, faster than sound, faster than comprehension. Buildings collapse like paper houses. The fish merchant, the housewives, the children, gone, vaporized, transformed into elements and ash. A fireball rises into the sky, boiling upward, drawing debris and smoke, and the remnants of 70,000 human lives into a shape that will become the signature of a new age, the mushroom cloud. 12 miles away, in a concrete bunker disguised as a hill outside the city, he is Japan's foremost nuclear physicist, a man who studied under Niels Bohr in Copenhagen, who built Japan's first cyclotron, who understands the atom not as poetry but as mathematics. At 8:16, his instruments register a disturbance unlike anything in their calibration. The needle jumps, scratches a violent peak across the rolling paper. The concrete walls shudder, dust falls from the ceiling. Dr. Nishina rises from his chair, his hand still holding a pencil, his mind already racing through calculations. He does not want to complete. He knows what this signature means. He has known it was possible, he has feared it was inevitable. But knowing and experiencing are separated by the width of a mushroom cloud. Within 3 hours, military motorcycles arrive at his laboratory. The messages they carry are fragmentary, contradictory, impossible. Hiroshima has been destroyed, not damaged, not bombed in the conventional sense. Destroyed, erased, a single bomb, one bomb. The dispatches use words that make no sense together: blinding flash, entire city, instantaneous, unprecedented. Dr. Nishina requests immediate transportation. By noon, he is airborne in a military reconnaissance plane, flying toward a city that, according to radio reports, no longer exists. As the plane approaches what should be Hiroshima, he sees the clouds still rising, still churning, a pillar of smoke and ash, reaching 40,000 feet into the stratosphere. Below it, where a city should be, there is only fire, not fires, plural, scattered across districts and neighborhoods. Fire, singular, absolute. The entire urban landscape has become a single burning wound. They cannot land. The heat is too intense. The destruction too complete. The plane circles at a distance, and through his window, Dr. Nishina sees what his equations predicted, but his heart refused to believe. This is not chemistry, this is not TNT or incendiaries or conventional explosives measured in tons. This is physics. This is E equals mc squared made manifest. This is the strong nuclear force, the binding energy that holds the universe together, unleashed against human flesh and human civilization. He estimates the yield at 15 kilotons, later confirmed to be 15,000 tons of TNT equivalent released in a fraction of a second. His cyclotron in Tokyo, running at full power for 1,000 years, could not generate 1/millionth of this energy. He understands in that moment above the burning city that Japan has been fighting with swords against the sun itself. The recognition comes not as surprise but as confirmation. Dr. Nishina has been part of Japan's own atomic program since 1941. He knows how far they have gotten, which is to say, nowhere near far enough. Japan's program, codenamed NIGO, has been strangled by lack of resources, lack of uranium, lack of the industrial capacity required to separate U-235 from U-238. They have theoretical knowledge. They have brilliant physicists. What they do not have is the infrastructure of a continent-spanning industrial empire. What they do not have is Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where 75,000 American workers enriched uranium in facilities consuming more electricity than entire Japanese cities. What they do not have is Hanford, Washington, where reactors produced plutonium on an assembly line scale. What they do not have is Los Alamos, where the greatest scientific minds of the Western world gathered in the desert to solve the engineering problems of annihilation. Dr. Nishina has known these facts for years. But facts are abstract. Facts are numbers on paper, reports from intelligence services, estimates and projections. What burns below him is not abstract. It is absolute. It is proof that while Japan has been hoarding rice and rationing steel, America has been building weapons that transcend the very category of weaponry. This is not superior firepower. This is a superior understanding of reality itself. The historical context of this moment stretches back 6 years, to September 1939, when Albert Einstein signed a letter to President Franklin Roosevelt warning that nuclear fission might be weaponized and that Germany might do it first. It accelerates through December 1941, when the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor transforms American industrial might from neutral to hostile, from potential to kinetic. It crystallizes in August 1942, when the Manhattan Project officially begins, a $2 billion undertaking, the equivalent of $30 billion in future currency, mobilizing 130,000 workers across multiple states. The Japanese know about Oak Ridge. Their spies have reported construction of massive facilities in Tennessee, but knowing about it and comprehending its purpose are different things. Japanese scientists hope that the Americans are pursuing the same dead ends they themselves have encountered. They assume the technical problems are insurmountable on a wartime timescale. They are wrong. Dr. Nishina lands in Tokyo on the evening of August 6. He goes directly to military headquarters, in a room filled with generals who have spent 4 years studying battle maps and troop movements. He attempts to explain what he has seen. He uses words like nuclear fission and critical mass, and chain reaction. The generals listen with the patience of men humoring a professor. They have concerns about rice harvests and fuel oil, and the coming American invasion. They ask, how many bombs can America have? Surely this weapon is so expensive, so difficult to produce, that it must be unique. Surely this is a bluff, a demonstration of a capability that cannot be repeated. Dr. Nishina cannot answer with certainty, but his knowledge of the industrial processes involved tells him a terrible truth. If America has built one, they have built more. The infrastructure required to produce one atomic bomb is the same infrastructure required to produce 10 or 20 or 50. You do not build Oak Ridge for a single weapon. You build it for a campaign. He is correct. At this moment, a second bomb, this one plutonium-based, codenamed Fat Man, is already armed and loaded on Tinian Island, awaiting only weather clearance for delivery. The target is Kokura. The backup target is Nagasaki. In 3 days, on August 9, 1945, when clouds obscure Kokura, the bombardier will select the backup. Nagasaki will cease to exist, with the same finality as Hiroshima. Nishina will examine the evidence from that blast as well, and his calculations will confirm a plutonium core, proof that America has mastered not one but 2 distinct pathways to atomic weapons. This is not a lucky success. This is systematized annihilation. The emotional contrast that defines this moment exists in the gap between expectation and reality, between the war Japanese scientists believed they were fighting, and the war that has actually occurred. When Japan initiated its atomic research in 1941, the scientists involved, Dr. Nishina among them, understood the theoretical possibility of nuclear weapons. But theory and practice are separated by an ocean of engineering. The expectation was that no nation, not even America, could solve the cascading technical problems quickly enough to matter in the current war. The expectation was that nuclear weapons, if they existed at all, would be post-war developments, things to worry about in 1950 or 1960. The reality is fire falling from the sky in 1945, delivered by a country that has simultaneously been fighting a two-front war across two oceans, while supplying its allies with enough material to defeat Nazi Germany. Japanese military ideology from the attack on Pearl Harbor forward has been built on certain assumptions. They assume American society is soft, made decadent by wealth and democracy. They assume American soldiers, drawn from a mongrel population of immigrants and individualists, lack the spiritual unity of the Yamato race. They assume that a war of attrition in the Pacific, made costly enough in American blood, will eventually break American will. Every one of these assumptions is designed to compensate for Japan's material inferiority. When you cannot outproduce the enemy, you must believe you can outlast them. When you cannot match their industry, you must trust in superior spirit. The atomic bomb is the annihilation of this entire framework. It is not a weapon that can be overcome with courage or endurance. It is physics. It does not care about Bushido or the warrior spirit. It splits uranium nuclei with perfect mathematical indifference. Dr. Nishina has spent his career understanding that nature obeys laws, not preferences. The strong nuclear force binds protons and neutrons in the atomic nucleus with energy so concentrated that a single kilogram of U-235, fully fissioned, releases the equivalent of 20,000 tons of TNT. This is not propaganda. This is thermodynamics. The sun operates on these principles. Stars are powered by fusion, the inverse of fission, but the fundamental truth is identical. Matter and energy are interchangeable, and the conversion rate is given by the speed of light squared. It is the most generous exchange rate in the universe. A tiny amount of matter becomes a titanic amount of energy. E equals mc squared. Einstein's equation, elegant and compact, contains within it the power to vaporize cities. The Japanese military, in the days following Hiroshima, issues statements claiming the attack is a violation of international law, a moral atrocity, an indefensible act against civilian populations. These statements are not incorrect, but they are strategic. The language is designed to appeal to world opinion, to shame America, to create diplomatic pressure for a negotiated peace. Behind closed doors, the conversation is different. Behind closed doors, the question is not whether the bombing is legal or moral, the question is whether Japan can survive more of them, and the answer, delivered by scientists like Dr. Nishina, is no. If America has 10 atomic bombs, Japan has no cities left. If America has 20, Japan has no industrial capacity left. If America has 50, Japan ceases to exist as a nation-state. The historical evidence of what Japanese scientists understood in August 1945 comes from multiple sources. Dr. Nishina's own reports to the military, now preserved in archives, detail his analysis of the Hiroshima blast. He calculated the yield, estimated the efficiency, identified the isotope. His report, dated August 10, 1945, concludes with a single devastating sentence. This is a practical atomic bomb of the uranium type. The word practical carries enormous weight. It means this is not an experiment. It is not a prototype. It is a weapon that can be built, deployed, and repeated. It is, in the most literal sense, the future of warfare, and Japan is facing it with technology from the past. Other Japanese scientists reach similar conclusions. Dr. Bensaku Arakatsu, working independently at Kyoto Imperial University, examines photographs of the Hiroshima mushroom cloud and recognizes the signature of a nuclear explosion. Ryokichi Sagane, who studied at the University of California, Berkeley before the war, and worked alongside American physicists on cyclotron experiments, immediately understands what has happened. Sagane-san even receives a personal letter dropped by American aircraft from his former colleagues at Berkeley. The letter, dated August 9, 1945, reads, "We are sending this as a personal message to urge that you use your influence to convince the Japanese government to surrender. As scientists, we deplore the use to which a beautiful discovery has been put, but the evidence must be convincing to you that further resistance is futile. The letter is signed by 3 American physicists who once shared laboratory space with him, who once discussed the beauty of atomic structure over steak and cigarettes. Now they are writing to tell him that beauty has been weaponized and that he is on the receiving end. The transformation this knowledge brings is not confined to the scientific community. Within days of Nagasaki, Emperor Hirohito himself addresses the reality of the atomic bomb in his recorded surrender announcement. His voice, never before heard by most Japanese civilians, crackles through radio speakers across the nation on August 15, 1945. He speaks in formal classical Japanese, nearly incomprehensible to the average listener, but one phrase penetrates: the enemy has begun to employ a new and most cruel bomb, the power of which to do damage is indeed incalculable, taking the toll of many innocent lives. This is the Emperor of Japan, regarded as a living god, admitting that the enemy possesses a weapon beyond calculation, not beyond defeat, beyond calculation. The very ability to measure its destructive capacity has been exceeded. For Japanese scientists, this moment represents a profound transformation of worldview. Many of them were educated in the West, in Europe and America, where they studied under the founders of modern physics. Dr. Nishina studied with Niels Bohr, who won the Nobel Prize for his model of the atom. Dr. Sagan studied at Berkeley with Ernest Lawrence, inventor of the cyclotron. These are not abstract enemies. These are former teachers, colleagues, friends. The scientific community before the war was international, bound by shared curiosity about the fundamental nature of reality. The war has severed those bonds, transformed colleagues into combatants. And now, the ultimate expression of their shared knowledge, the splitting of the atom, has been turned against the side that could not industrialize the discovery quickly enough. There is a bitter irony in this. Japanese scientists understand the physics. They read the same journals, attended the same conferences, worked on the same problems. What they lack is not knowledge, but capacity. America's atomic bomb is not the product of superior intellect. It is the product of superior resources. It is the product of a nation that can allocate 130,000 workers to a single secret project, while simultaneously building 300,000 aircraft, 100,000 tanks, and 5,000 ships. It is the product of a society that can mine uranium in Colorado, refine it in Tennessee, design bombs in New Mexico, and deliver them from Tinian Island, while maintaining food rationing at home that still provides more calories per capita than Japan's military rations provide to frontline soldiers. The recurring symbol of this disparity, the object that represents American abundance throughout the Pacific War, is not the rifle or the tank or even the bomb itself. It is food. Captured American rations tell Japanese soldiers more about the enemy's capacity than any intelligence report. A single American K-ration contains chocolate, condensed milk, instant coffee, cigarettes, and chewing gum. Japanese soldiers, subsisting on rice balls and seaweed, examine these packages with a mixture of hunger and disbelief. One ration contains more sugar than a Japanese soldier receives in a week. The cigarettes are fresh, packaged in waterproof materials. The chocolate does not melt in tropical heat because it has been specially formulated to remain stable at high temperatures. This is a military that has solved the thermodynamics of chocolate before it solved the problem of tropical disease. This is an enemy that packages chewing gum for frontline soldiers while Japan is rationing salt. When Dr. Nishina examines the remnants of the Hiroshima bomb, he finds evidence of this same industrial sophistication. The uranium has been enriched to weapons-grade purity, a process requiring thousands of centrifuges running continuously for months. The bomb's triggering mechanism uses conventional explosives arranged in a gun-type assembly, simple in concept but requiring precision engineering to ensure the subcritical masses achieve critical mass at exactly the right velocity. Every component reflects a manufacturing capacity, operating at a scale Japan cannot match. The bomb casing is machined steel. The electronics are reliable. The detonator functions at 1,968 feet, exactly as designed. This is not luck. This is a nation that has reduced apocalypse to an engineering problem, and then solved it on schedule and under budget. After Nagasaki, after the Emperor's surrender broadcast, After the documents are signed on the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, Dr. Nishina returns to his laboratory. His cyclotron, Japan's greatest achievement in nuclear physics, the machine that cost the equivalent of millions of yen and represented years of work, is ordered destroyed by American occupation forces. On November 24, 1945, US soldiers arrive with cutting torches. They dismantle the cyclotron piece by piece and dump the components into Tokyo Bay. The official reason is demilitarization. The practical reason is to ensure Japan cannot restart atomic research. Dr. Nishina watches his life's work sink beneath the water. He is 55 years old. He understands that he will not live to see Japan rebuild this capacity. He also understands that it does not matter. The gap is too wide. The war has proven that some disparities cannot be overcome with willpower or spirit. Some gaps are structural, baked into the foundations of industrial civilization. The transformation this understanding brings to Japanese scientific ideology is profound and permanent. Before the war, Japanese science operated with a mixture of confidence and nationalism. They had reason to believe, that they could compete with the West in any field of research. They had won the Russo-Japanese War in 1905, the first modern victory of an Asian nation over a European power. They had built a navy that rivaled Britain's. They had industrialized in half a century, a pace that took Europe 200 years. This success bred a belief that Japanese ingenuity, combined with spiritual discipline, could overcome material disadvantages. The atomic bomb destroys this belief. The bomb is proof that some advantages are not merely material but categorical. A nation without uranium cannot build uranium bombs no matter how clever its scientists. A nation without the electrical grid to power enrichment facilities cannot enrich uranium no matter how dedicated its workers. A nation without the industrial surplus to allocate billions of dollars to a speculative weapons program cannot compete with a nation that possesses all of these things and uses them simultaneously while fighting a global war. The post-war reflections of Japanese scientists return repeatedly to this theme. In his later writings, Dr. Nishina describes the war as a collision between two paradigms of science. Japanese science, he argues, was excellent at the theoretical level, but lacked the systemic integration required to move from theory to application at scale. American science, by contrast, was not necessarily more brilliant at the individual level, but was embedded in an industrial system that could take theoretical insights and operationalize them with ruthless efficiency. The Manhattan Project was not primarily a scientific achievement. It was a managerial achievement. It was the achievement of coordinating mining operations, chemical refinement, engineering design, weapons testing, and strategic deployment across a continent-sized nation while maintaining secrecy and meeting deadlines. No Japanese institution, not even the Zaibatsu industrial conglomerates, could have managed such a project. The capacity simply did not exist. This recognition that the war was lost, not on the battlefield, but in the factory, not in courage, but in capacity, becomes central to Japan's post-war reconstruction. When Japanese industry rebuilds after 1945, it does so with a clear understanding of what modern competition requires. It requires supply chains, standardization, quality control, and scale. It requires the ability to integrate scientific research with mass production. It requires, above all, the kind of systemic efficiency that can take a theoretical discovery and transform it into 1,000,000 identical products or 1,000 identical bombs. The Japan that rises from the ashes of Hiroshima and Nagasaki becomes a different kind of power. It does not compete militarily. It competes industrially. It takes the lessons of the atomic bomb, the lessons of American industrial superiority, and applies them to transistors, automobiles, and consumer electronics. By the 1980s, Japan will produce better cars than Detroit and better semiconductors than Silicon Valley. But in August 1945, these victories are unimaginable. In August 1945, the only certainty is defeat. The symbolism of the mushroom cloud itself becomes embedded in global consciousness. Before Hiroshima, the mushroom cloud does not exist as a symbol. Explosions produce smoke, debris, fire, but not this. Not the distinctive pillar and cap that rises miles into the stratosphere, drawing matter upward through convection and radiation pressure. The mushroom cloud is unique to nuclear explosions, because only nuclear explosions release enough energy quickly enough to create the atmospheric conditions required. It is a signature written in the sky, visible for hundreds of miles, lasting for hours. To Japanese scientists watching from observation posts around Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the cloud is not symbolic, it is diagnostic. Its height, its color, its persistence, all of these provide data. Dr. Nishina measures the cloud's altitude and calculates the energy required to lift that much material to that height. His numbers confirm his worst fears. This is a 15 kiloton explosion, maybe 20. Nothing in Japan's arsenal can produce even a fraction of this yield. The largest conventional bombs in existence carry 2 tons of explosives. This is 10,000 times more powerful. It is not an incremental improvement, it is a change of kind. But to the wider world, to the civilians who see photographs of the mushroom cloud in newspapers and newsreels, the image becomes something else. It becomes the symbol of the atomic age, the visual representation of humanity's newfound ability to destroy itself. Artists will paint it. Protesters will march beneath banners depicting it. Film directors will use it to signify apocalypse. It will become, in the decades following 1945, the most recognizable symbol of modern warfare, more iconic than the tank or the bomber, more viscerally terrifying than the gas mask. And at the root of this symbol, at the origin point, is Hiroshima, on August 6, 1945, when a single bomb transforms a city into shadow and ash. And a handful of Japanese scientists understand with absolute clarity that the world has changed. The epilogue of this story is not written in August 1945. It is written over decades, as the implications of Hiroshima ripple outward through history. Dr. Nishina dies in 1951, only 6 years after the war, his cyclotron destroyed, his life's work dismantled. But his legacy persists in the generations of Japanese physicists who follow him, many of whom dedicate their careers not to weapons but to peaceful applications of nuclear energy. Japan, the only nation to suffer atomic attack, becomes one of the most vocally anti-nuclear nations on Earth, while simultaneously developing a robust civilian nuclear power industry. This paradox, rejecting nuclear weapons while embracing nuclear energy, reflects the dual nature of the atom itself. It is power, neutral in itself, catastrophic or beneficial depending on application. The larger truth that Hiroshima reveals is this: freedom and abundance are not abstractions. They are material conditions. They are the product of systems, economic, political, industrial, that can mobilize resources at scale. The United States in 1945 possesses these systems. It has the surplus capacity to pursue projects that seem impossible. It can allocate billions to speculative research, while still outproducing the rest of the world combined in conventional weapons, food, and consumer goods. This abundance is not accidental. It is the product of a continent's worth of natural resources, a large and educated population, a stable legal system that protects property and innovation, and a democratic government that, for all its flaws, allows for the kind of decentralized decision-making that accelerates technological progress. Japan in 1945 possesses courage, discipline, and scientific knowledge. What it lacks is the systemic capacity to turn these virtues into industrial output at American scale. The atomic bomb does not prove that American scientists are smarter. It proves that American systems are more powerful. It proves that in modern warfare, victory belongs not to the most courageous, but to the most productive. The Japanese soldiers who fought to the death on Pacific Islands, who starved rather than surrender, who flew planes into American ships, they were not defeated by weakness. They were defeated by mathematics. They were defeated by the equation that says industrial capacity times time equals military power, and that no amount of courage can overcome a sufficiently large deficit in the variables. The atom in the end is indifferent. It does not care about empires or ideologies. It obeys laws written into the fabric of reality at the moment of the universe's creation. When you compress uranium-235 beyond a critical mass, neutrons begin to strike other uranium nuclei. causing them to split and release more neutrons, which strike more nuclei, which split and release more neutrons. This chain reaction proceeds at a rate determined by physics, not by human will. It cannot be stopped by bravery or delayed by prayer. It simply happens with the inevitability of gravity. On August 6, 1945, above Hiroshima, this chain reaction occurs in a fraction of a second. Trillions of atoms split, energy floods outward, the temperature exceeds that of the sun's surface, and 70,000 people cease to exist. Dr. Nishina understands this. Standing in his laboratory in the days after the war, examining the data, reviewing the calculations, he understands that the bomb is not an anomaly, it is the future. It is what happens when scientific knowledge, industrial capacity, and strategic necessity converge. Other nations will build them. The Soviet Union will test its first atomic bomb in 1949, barely 4 years after Hiroshima. Britain will follow. France, China. The technology once proven cannot be uninvented. The knowledge once gained cannot be forgotten. The atom once split cannot be made whole. What has been released into the world on August 6, 1945 is not just energy but possibility, the possibility of annihilation on a scale that makes previous wars look like skirmishes. Yet within this darkness, there is a strange light. The atomic bomb is so terrible, so absolute in its destructive capacity, that it changes the calculus of war itself. In the decades following 1945, the great powers will build arsenals capable of destroying civilization multiple times over, but they will not use them. The bomb is too powerful to use, which means it becomes a deterrent rather than a weapon. The Cold War, the great ideological struggle between capitalism and communism, will be waged through proxy conflicts, espionage, and economic competition, but not through direct superpower warfare, because the cost of such a war has become extinction. In this sense, the atom does not merely end World War II, it ends a certain kind of war, total war between major powers, by making the cost unacceptable. This is the legacy that Dr. Nishina and his colleagues bequeath to the future. They are the first scientists to understand, with absolute empirical certainty, that the atom has won not just a battle or a war but a permanent alteration in the structure of human conflict. They are the first to see the mushroom cloud, and know with the clarity of equations and evidence that warfare has entered a new era. They are the first to realize that what has been unleashed cannot be controlled, only managed, and that the management will require wisdom of a kind humanity has rarely demonstrated. In the years after the war, Japan rebuilds, cities rise from ash, industries retool from weapons to goods. The generation that fought the war gives way to a generation that knows only peace, but the memory of Hiroshima persists. Every August 6, at 8:15 in the morning, a bell rings across the city. Survivors gather at the Peace Memorial. Paper lanterns float down the river, each one carrying a prayer for the dead. And somewhere in the archives, preserved in yellowing paper and fading ink, are the reports of Dr. Yoshio Nishina, the scientist who understood before almost anyone else that the atom had won the war, that the future would be shaped not by the courage of soldiers, but by the power of physics, and that humanity had stepped, in a single blinding flash, into an age where knowledge itself had become the ultimate weapon. The day begins with a blue sky and ends with fire. The world that exists at 8:14 on August 6, 1945, is not the same world that exists at 8:16. In those 2 minutes, separated by the breadth of a mushroom cloud, everything changes, empires fall, cities burn, and a handful of scientists, standing in laboratories and observation posts scattered across a defeated nation, understand with terrible clarity that they have witnessed not just a bombing but a revelation. The atom has spoken. Its voice is fire. And its message is this: in the modern age, the power to understand nature is inseparable from the power to destroy it. This is the truth that wins the war. This is the knowledge that haunts the peace. This is the legacy of August 6, 1945. The day the atom split the sky and the world learned to fear the smallest thing in creation.